Hello, everyone. Thank you to all you guys who have just joined us. It's another random one from the three of us tonight. It's me and Phil and Pink. Say hello, Phil and Pink.
Hey,
Hello.
I think that was just Phil for some reason. Pink didn't show up. Say hello again, Pink.
oh,
There we go. Pink's there.
hey,
Right, so we got information this morning from Adepticon about the update or the updates that potentially are coming to Warhammer 40k. And I had a quick look this morning. I went back to sleep and I forgot about it, so I want to chat about it. Phil and Pink have both had a good read through the article, and we're just going to discuss some of the points. I'm going to get reminded on some of the points. And if any of you guys in the chat, guys and girls, I think there's only guys at the moment, but if any girls join, want to have a little bit of an input as well and tell us what you think about the potential changes, that would be awesome. If you're watching this after it has gone live, just put your comments in the feed below, and then we'll get back to you and we can have a nice little discussion about this. A friendly discussion. We don't really want to have a slagging match over what would be really bad and just negativity. We don't really want negativity. So if you want to be negative, find somewhere else to be negative. But on the whole, we'd like to hear what you think about it. Okay, so Phil, tell us a little bit about what has been discussed, really.
Well, Sam, the world's ending, mate. The world's ending. It's always. Okay. Well, Adapticon is screaming along live at the moment, and what the Warhammer community chaps did was post something up last night, which I'm sure a lot of people have probably seen right now. But what it is Pete Foley, who's the head of Warhammer Books and Box Game Studio, shared some of his team's current thinking on the game. So that's an interesting point, really. They describe it as their current thinking on the game. So, I'd be surprised if they go to the extent of announcing this stuff, their current thinking, and then for it to disappear. So I think really what we're seeing here is pretty much how it's going to end, if you like. But you never know. Maybe they've kind of released this to the market quite early just to sort of see what the reaction is. But I'd be surprised. I mean, we all know how long print runs take and all the rest, and rumor is 8th edition's just round the corner. So I should imagine all of this stuff's committed to print by now. But what they did was break it down into a few key areas, really. They wanted to share with us some of the rules concepts that they're currently working on. And I mean, and this is the point. They're talking present case all the time. They're not saying it's done, but here's a sneak preview. So first and foremost, and I think we'll go through these one at a time, guys, if that's cool. 3 ways to play. The General's Handbook has been one of the most popular rule supplements we've ever released. Who'd have thought letting people choose how they wanted to play their games and giving them a clear way to do that would be so popular? It's pretty clear from the talking to a number of the event organizers that Warhammer 40k would benefit from the same approach. So we'll soon be introducing the same 3 ways to play: open, narrative, and match play to the 41st millennium. So first and foremost, now the tense has changed because they're saying we're doing this. So that doesn't sound like these are thoughts going through their mind, is it? Because they're pretty certain this is going to happen. My first reaction to this was, oh, cool. That sounds pretty good. So what about you two guys? Maybe we'll go through your thoughts first. Pink?
Yeah, go for it, Pink.
yeah. I was going to say, I thought of everything that we're going to cover, this one was a bit of a non-event for me, to be honest, just because I've never seen anyone with Age of Sigmar ever play open or narrative. Like, narrative is very specific scenarios with specific armies, and even they give you the list to play with. So if you don't tend to own those models, you've kind of got to proxy some stuff in or something like that. And I thought it was a little bit weird that they said, from speaking to tournament organisers, I can't imagine tournament organisers ever play open or narrative. It's all match play. But I think they're definitely right that the General's Handbook was the best thing that ever happened to Age of Sigmar. So I don't know, Sam, what were your thoughts on this one?
I'm the same. I mean, as much as I like doing fluffy armies and theme stuff for the look of an army, in terms of actually playing it, I won't do it unless there's points, because I can't restrict myself. They say be nice and work out your army lists against each other as fairly as you can, but I can't do that. Even if I'm trying really hard, you always have somebody's always going to have an advantage over the other person. And I know that 40k isn't currently balanced anyway, but it's nice to hide behind a point value and say, well, I'm doing my best. I'm trying to do what I can here. So when Age of Sigmar got points, I went straight out and bought the book, which I imagine is what every single person who was playing Age of Sigmar or played 8th edition and refused to play Age of Sigmar until that point decided to do. So I can see why it was the fastest selling supplement for a game. You know, it makes sense. It was unplayable for me. I don't know if it was unplayable for, you know, loads of people as well, but for me it was unplayable. And as soon as they brought that book out, I could then start playing their game again. So
completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just having a quick look at the chat, and we've got John Booth saying, as long as my Raven Wing can go faster and shoot better, then he doesn't mind. Everybody wants an army boom on this, don't they?
Yeah.
Kablams, hey Kablams, good to see you. Thanks for the video the other night, by the way, that was awesome. Got super happy when I saw this hint at some streamlining in 40k. I'm too old for bloated rule sets.
Definitely.
And I think that's what everybody's probably feeling, isn't it? No matter what, this changes, you know, from a positive perspective, it's got to be good. I think we've all been feeling how bloated this system is getting. So I'm looking forward to that streamlining. I'm looking forward to laughing in games rather than frowning because I can't remember a particular rule. So we'll see. The only thing is, for me, bear in mind, this is the 40k universe now. It feels like the iterators have marched in and started to do a bit of an imperial job on us, because the way that reads is, you know, the General's Handbook is one of the most popular rule supplements we've ever released. I mean, that's on the back of 12 months of Age of Sigmar not having a point system.
Mm-hmm.
So no surprise when they released a way, admittedly, of playing 3 different ways. The third way was with a rule, with a point system. So yeah, there was a lot of Age of Sigmar players like you, Sam, who struggle with the social contract and need control through a point system. Dived out and bought a copy of the General's Handbook. Who didn't? Which Age of Sigmar player didn't dive out there and go points? You know, because that's what everybody was looking for. To you know, I think it's okay with games amongst friends, but games in tournaments and games down at the stores with people you don't know, that social contract idea is harder to propagate, isn't it? So
it added time onto it as well. That was the other problem with it, that you'd have to debate, or not even debate, even if you had 2 people who really just wanted to get on with the game, it still took a good 10 to 20 minutes to decide what you were going to do and what you wanted to achieve from the game. Then you'd play the game, and then you'd pack up when you realised that you might have had a bit of an unbalanced list. So it works with your mate. Like, if you and me play a game, Phil, you'll know that I'm going to try and take a really filthy list. You're going to have to take something equivalent. It works when you know the opponent. It works fine. But if you don't know your opponent, it just takes longer to play games. So I think having the 3 options, it's a great idea, but it's not a main point of the changes for me.
My point around that was really, they were saying the driver for wanting to do that was for 40k because it was popular and therefore popular with the gamers.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is I think it was popular with Age of Sigmar players because it gave us what we already have in 40k. We have a point system. Yeah. It will be interesting to see how well the you know, the other 2 ways of playing, you know, work with 40k players. I'm hoping it takes off, by the way. I like the idea of showing up to a tournament that's not based on match play but based on, you know, narrative and having a good time. For me, that works. So it'd be nice to see it. I really would. And in many respects, it mirrors the games that I play against Jack or, you know, some of the local guys here, because, you know, a lot of time you just put an army together. You know, I've got a huge Eldar collection, and I love just pulling out things that you just never see on the table because supposedly they're not as competitive. By the way, that's a ridiculous statement for Eldar. I know everything's competitive, so do apologize. Right, the next one. Should we have a quick look at what people are saying on the chat? Is that worth having a look down?
Yeah, we've got there's quite a few actually. So Kablan, we've done that one. Simpler rule set is the easier. The simpler a rule set is, the easier it becomes to balance with updates and FAQs, which is something we've seen. The more formations that come out. I mean, we were talking about Tyranids the other day, weren't we, Phil? It's very difficult for Tyranids to play against some of the more. The books that have got released recent content is difficult unless you have stuff on the same level. So it'd be good if they can update that. John's put, with the new charging rule, I will be interested to see how Overwatch. We'll go back to how Overwatch versus charging will work. We'll talk about that when we get the rule. Not sure about the new drop pod rules though, Dance Macabre says. Yeah, I mean, that was pretty fun. That's Bug Meteors. Me and my mate used to play that when we were little. we'd throw things at the table and say, that's dead, take it off. So I quite like the idea of having, I mean, I play unpainted and unbuilt models, but one way of doing it.
That's basically Rachel with Lord Croak, isn't it?
She does that every game. And
Well,
her list, she told me yesterday, going off topic a little bit, she said to me she wants to do 1,000 points of Seraphon so that she can start playing really quickly. And the stuff I need to paint for her next, she's got Croak. She wants 10 Temple Guard and then a Carnosaur in 1,000 points. So she's just going to have like 12 models. 2 of them are more than half of her, 3/4 of her list. So she's going to love playing that.
So there's an example of how that social contract is really working with narrative play. So we'll see that.
Yeah. I told her she won't win a game. She doesn't care. What have we got? Henry's put, was I the only one who saw the plastic Thunderhawk written on the box in the GW video? No, I think they're doing little things like that as tongue-in-cheek funny parts of their videos.
Yeah, that video was definitely just tongue-in-cheek, I think, wasn't it? But you never know. Okay, right. Next up on the list that they released was army selection. One of the things that comes up a lot is the idea that people should be rewarded for taking thematic armies. It's a sentiment we agree with, so we're looking at introducing command points, a mechanism to reward players who structure their armies like their in-world counterparts with rerolls and cool army-specific rules throughout the game. So, should we stick with the order? Pink, what do you think to that?
Is this what's going to replace formations then? Basically, the idea that instead of it being a fluffy sort of like battle demi company or whatever, you'll get this is what a Space Marine army should look like, and therefore, but rather than giving you fixed rewards, it sounds like perhaps you can choose what you use that on. A bit like perhaps like they mentioned their re-rolls, but then they also say some army specific rules. So it'll be interesting how it plays out. But I think that's generally important to keep a little bit of fluff in there and stops you just bringing a whole random assortment of units that don't make sense just to bring the filthiest list that you can.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sam. That's out for you.
I mean, I just struggle. I really do struggle. I was chatting to Phil about this yesterday, that I enjoy playing Age of Sigmar a lot. I really enjoy playing Age of Sigmar, and 40k I struggle quite a bit because I end up looking in the rule book far too much. I don't know all of the rules, and even when I think I know the rules, I still spend half of a game in a rule book double checking something, whether it interacts with the enemy's models. So it takes me ages to do stuff, whereas Sigmar I look at the war scroll and I get on with it. It's really straightforward. So and the way that the Age of Sigmar armies are structured, it's similar to formations, isn't it? They've got battalions. You buy a battalion and that might give some of your units extra rules, but it's just simple. It's a simple army building method, and it's just straightforward. And for me, with my limited memory, that's perfect. So, and themes as well. The other thing I do like about Sigmar is sticking to a faction gives you your allegiance benefits. Iron Jaws, which I play, haven't got their own specific Iron Jaw artifacts or command traits, but I can use the destruction ones.
And they are going back to update that for the old armies, like Khorne's getting their ones next month, which I'm really looking forward to.
Which I'm sure you're happy about now.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, they're updating that. And that's just another example. Age of Sigmar came out. They released a bunch of rules. They've then tweaked it for the General's Handbook. They've already got General Handbooks 2 on the table. And they're already releasing updates for armies like Demons and Khorne, who have already had stuff. They can quickly update these contents. I'm going to turn my phone off. Why is that beeping? They can quickly just update stuff, which is another amazing part of it doesn't take 3 years to get a codex or 3 years to get an update to your codex. Wargamer Viking has joined us. Hey up, boys. I can't say it. Phil, you try it.
Hey up, boys.
Hello, Spud.
How you doing, Spud, man? Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm a little, of all the things, a little bit confused about this because it kind of tells you something, but it also doesn't tell you a lot. So first and foremost, let's just break it down. We've got this idea of rewarding people for thematic armies. Okay, makes sense. Introducing command points. Okay, what are command points? They're a mechanism to reward players who structure their army like their in-world counterparts with re-rolls, cool army-specific rules throughout the game. So Do you for instance, unlike say formations, or maybe like formations, if you take this formation, you gain a command point. If you take that formation, you gain a command point. If you take this formation, you gain a command point, and you end up with, okay, this army I've built has 3 command points, and then you can choose to spend those command points in some way. Is it going to be that means I've got 3 rolls this game, or three re-rolls of charge or something like that? That will be the interesting thing, won't it? It's just, how do you spend that command point? Or is it a mechanism that you don't have much choice over, like the current formations? You take a formation, it has a special rule. You can't select what the bonus is, if you like. So, for me, that will be the interesting thing. I just don't feel we've got enough information, and I don't know enough of the back editions of 40k of whether that's reintroducing something or not that's been there before. Or so, maybe someone on the chat may have seen this mechanism before, but we'll see. What's next? Movement is the next one, guys. So we think move value should come back. No more default unit types. Every model should have cool bespoke rules. Not only would that be more fun, but it'll mean you will only need to learn the rules for your models. I mean, winner. This is definitely, I'll go first this time. This is definitely a reflection of Age of Sigmar, isn't it? A much smaller core rule, and then a build-up of rules around your own army. That's what it feels like. And by the way, I just want to say this. I called this when the new Eldar came out, and they had all those bonuses around 7 inches. I put on I think it was on the Eldar forum, I said, maybe this is a hint of army-specific move rule. Is this a hint of 8th edition? So I don't know whether that went anywhere. I remember a couple of people replying back saying, good point. But if that went all over the internet, that was mine. I called that.
Okay, it's yours, Phil.
Sam? You happy with your movement?
Yeah, I mean, I like Age of Sigmar. So, yeah. Pretty straightforward.
That's it.
If they're going to take the movement...
What's your main army, Sam?
For what?
For 40k.
I haven't got one. I've got Eldar. I've got some word bearers which I use in 40k, and I've got some space wolves that aren't fully painted to play games with. So I am going to start Chaos. I discussed this last night before I saw all of the Nurgle goodness that came out. I decided that for the channel it would be good for me to do a bunch of different sub armies like Nurgle, Tzeentch, Slaanesh, and then I can do games where I just use a part of it, and then I can play bigger stuff where I include whatever I want. And it also means I'm just going to pick every unit. Like Age of Sigmar, my Iron Jaw army is 2 of everything from the Iron Jaw range, and I can just mix it around and I can try different things out. I'm not spamming the same unit, which is what I end up doing with 40k games at the moment. I just pick the filthiest thing and spam it over and over. So for 40k, I'm going to do Chaos, and I'm going to get 1 of everything, and I'm just going to have fun with it. That's what army I'm playing. What was the question? Movement. I'm off track. I'm tired as well. Okay. Spud's tired. I'm tired. You asked me a question.
Halfway through that answer, you were just talking about Age of Sigmar for some inexplicable reason on a chat that's titled "The Future of 40k."
Because it's taking movement from Age of Sigmar.
Movement was back in what? 3rd edition, was it? 2nd edition? I think I know that much, but maybe could be wrong. It's going to be interesting from me as an Eldar player, isn't it? I mean, okay, 7-inch move, maybe, seeing as though it was all over that new rule set. But I'm assuming we're going to lose things like battle focus, because if I could move 7 inches and run then shoot, that just seems insanely fast.
Well, they didn't stop it with bikes, did they? So I wouldn't worry about it. They didn't go, across the board in 1 turn, that sounds too powerful. They went, yeah, they're Eldar, they're fast, so I can't see them changing it.
Pink?
I thought this paragraph almost read a bit weird, like there's 2 separate parts. They first said, we think the move value should come back, no more default types. But then they go, every model should have their own cool bespoke rules, and you'll only need to learn the rules to your models. I mean, if that's just referencing the movement value, then it seems weird to say you'd also have cool bespoke rules. I don't know if they then mean that the like Eldar jet bikes will be able to do something else as well and stuff like that relating to movement.
I think the big clue is in the no more default unit types. The idea of infantry is gone. You will have striking scorpions, you will have chaos marine, and that will, to a degree allow them to introduce a whole bunch of new stuff. So no more, well, infantry do this, infantry do that, infantry do that. All of that will be contained on the actual unit card, won't it? Which, by the way, if you're listening, Games Workshop, definitely release those nice A5 cards for all of our units, please. That would be an amazing gaming aid. So
before Phil
do that right from day one. Right from day one. Don't do that whole 3 armies without it and then start introducing it later on me.
You know what this means is they're actually going to have to do like the Age of Sigmar app, where they bring out unit cards for every single model, every single unit in the game, because no one's got a move value, and if they're saying it's bespoke for your models, it means that we're going to have to get something like the Age of Sigmar app, where it just gives you the rules for everything. Otherwise, they've got to release every single codex on day one, which I can't see them doing.
True. So. Although with Age of Sigmar, of course, they released that overall book, which did kind of cover everything. You just lacked.
They released war scrolls for everything, every single army. They can do it. They have done it, and they could easily do it again. So.
Yeah. Okay, should we have a quick look at the chat? There's, I think, Wargamer Viking and Kablams are just going mad, so we're not quite sure what they're up to now. Oh, give me a knighthood. Thanks, man.
You have technically got a knighthood. But
I don't think we can talk about that, can we? No. We're not allowed to talk about that yet. But maybe that's for a future chat.
Yeah.
But I have technically am a knight. Okay, getting movement back is great. Having Eldar move the same as Space Marines never sat well with me. Yep, I'm with you on that. I've been here for 2 minutes. It's all gone mad. Well done, Mr. Viking, but come on, tell us what you think about 40k. Kablams loves reference cards, so great. We're all on the same book. Maybe we need to start one of those government petitions.
Well, you know what, actually, just talking about the cards and the way that it speeds up the game. Another thing that kind of grinds my gears with 40k is when you're playing against a new army and you don't necessarily know it, you can't just take a piece of paper with all of the rules on it and read it and go, yeah, okay, I understand what's happening. You end up sometimes needing to go through the entire codex to read how things work and how all the combos work. So if you're playing against Khorne Demonkin, you need to know how they all work before the game, otherwise it slows it down. With Age of Sigmar, you just look at the card and you can just read what the unit does.
No, that's not true, Sam.
Well,
that's the truth you want to believe, but it's not true. No, because there's loads of army rules. There's loads of army rules that sit outside of the unit cards.
With Sylvaneth. With Orcs, I just hit stuff.
Are you going to talk about Age of Sigmar all night, Sam? Is that
it's turning into Age of Sigmar, so sorry for bringing Age of Sigmar into this, but I think they tested 40k the way that the game would go with Age of Sigmar first, and they've kind of liked it.
Okay. Next up on the Age of the Emperor, shooting. Armor save modifiers. Age of the Emperor, by the way, that's a Wargamer Online term that we've just invented. Shooting, armor save modifiers. This topic comes up as often as Sisters of Battle, so we're going to bring them back. Sisters of Battle or save modifiers. Every weapon will have its place in your army and better represent how you imagine them working in your head. Come on, Sam.
What was the question?
Armor. They're introducing armor save modifiers.
Yeah, it's fine. That's what they had in. I can't talk about it. Yeah, move on. I can't talk about anything other than 40k. I liked 8th edition fantasy where you had weapons which reduced armor saves and so forth, and I like rend values in Age of Sigmar. So if they're doing that with 40k, I like it.
So talk me through here, because I'm aware of how Age of Sigmar works, which is this -1 rend, -2 rend, and then you have certain things that ignore rends. So that replaces what part of the mechanic for 40k? That replaces AP? So we don't have AP weapons anymore?
No. Yeah, you have rend instead. So Space Marines armor is a 3-up. So you might have a bolt gun that does 1 rend. So, you just change it.
Right. Does that mean you always get a save? Do you always get a roll of 6 as successful in Sigmar?
No, you can't have it so you get no armor save in Sigmar.
Right, okay. But it's a variable impact on armor, basically. That's how it's superior to, say, AP?
Yeah, I would say it's not like black and white, like where an AP3 missile, like crack missile, can't touch Terminator armor, but plasma goes through it like butter. And then you've got the same sort of thing where like bolters against regular guardsmen just blow them to pieces, but as soon as they got slightly better armor, they get the full save. I much prefer this idea that it's got a modifier, because there's certain weapons in the game that you just think, why would I ever take that? Because it won't deal with Terminator, so. Whereas this means that everything is way more useful.
Yeah.
It'd be nice for every unit to have a use. Again, with the 40k armies, you tend to pick the same powerful stuff. I know you don't, Phil. You pick a bit of everything to have a varied army, but me personally, I just pick the nasty stuff and ignore half of the codex. So it would be good to have every unit have a use again. So you can use every unit for something. It makes them sell the models that weren't selling. They've got them all in their back catalogue of, grots are sitting there doing nothing, just there as a bullet magnet. But every unit will actually have a use now, so that'll be good.
Yeah, like I say, it's a double-edged sword for me, this one. That's why I've gone a bit quiet. I'm thinking, I like the idea that everything has a use again. I can see how that has a value, but at the same time, part of me did enjoy the fact that some things were just impregnable when it came to certain opponents. You could move through them with impunity if you like, but
well, you'll still have that probably with toughness and strength. That will still apply. So if you've got like your dreadnought and you're shooting it with bolt guns, it won't matter. It's just if you're shooting things with an armor.
Do you think though that toughness and strength will remain? I mean, there's an assumption there, isn't there? Because that went with Sigmar, didn't it? On the to hit to wound became a. Remember that this is about saying you don't need all the rules you need are going to be on the unit, and that's what Age of Sigmar did by introducing to hit and to wound, wasn't it?
It's true. I feel like they would have said that. I don't know.
If they do, I think it won't be a bad thing. Phil can never get over this whole idea that he doesn't like the fact that a goblin can kill a dragon in Age of Sigmar.
I can't wait for my Gretchen to kill his dragon.
I've tried explaining this to him, that it's still a very slim chance for a goblin to kill a dragon, and the chance of it happening is effectively the goblin crawling up into the dragon's mouth and it choking on the goblin. This is the idea behind it. It's not like a goblin's going to heroically fight a dragon for 3 turns and hold it up for the rest of the game. I've not had an Age of Sigmar game where this has happened. So although you could do it, it's not going to be that likely. And if your zombie manages to kill a giant, fair play. That zombie's getting a promotion. And if you've got Ghazghkull Thraka jumping down off his orc boat or whatever they travel around on, I don't know why he's on a boat, and like a Gretchen just crawls out and decides to become the new war boss and somehow kills him, fair play. We've got a new Gretchen as a war boss. It's thematic as well. We're talking about narrative and stuff like that. You can play games and it works, and you can include it in the narrative. I like it.
Okay. Yet to be convinced, and of course yet to actually get any kind of concrete information of whether that's happening or not. Anyway, maybe we'll hear more overnight. Maybe they'll say more at the event. But just having a quick look on the chat, Kablams is saying toughness and strength has to remain. Agreed, Mr. Kablams, from my perspective, but So 40k will become simplified like AOS, question mark. I think that's the case, yeah. I think that's what this is all about. One way or another, once the culture shock was over with Age of Sigmar, for those people who have tried it, it's fairly universal. I mean, of course, there's going to be some detractors, but it's fairly universal once you actually try the game with a bit of an open mind. It's an incredibly enjoyable game. And, I had a game with Sylvaneth against Khorne, the Blood, what are they called? The Bloodbound?
Yeah, that's...
And I didn't think that was going to be fun. It was against super competitive Luke. We all know what he's like. We laughed throughout the entire game, and it was at times it was filthy, but most of the time it was funny. And to me, it was that game that really turned me to Age of Sigmar, as in saying this is a good system, because if you can go up against someone like Luke who just loves to melt you in the first turn, but still be battling away turns later with the game swinging in one direction backwards and forwards, and both players just laughing at each other's fortune and misfortune, then that's what the game's about, isn't it? So if that comes into 40k, and if that's part of that simplification that enables people to just enjoy the game and not have to become rules experts, then all the better for it.
I think everybody does jump on it's getting simplified, so therefore it's negative. And like Johnson has put there, a bit more simplified can't be bad if it's going to run smoother and quicker. And that's the thing for me. It's more fun when you're playing the game and not reading the rule book. And that's the biggest thing for me, actually, is that if I'm playing a game, I want to play it. I don't want to read. If I wanted to read, I'd go and get a novel, or I'd read the Horus Heresy, because they're better books than a rule book.
I'd much rather the games went quicker as well, because now, especially like Games Workshop, seem to be pushing the larger games, and that's all great because especially for us, I guess, as we get older and we collect more stuff, it's cool to be able to play with all your toys. But the games even now, like 1,500 points, 2,000 points, just takes like a whole afternoon, it feels like sometimes.
Yeah.
And like, if you do it quicker, that's great.
And it's easier to get into. Games Workshop are doing the whole... They're getting new hobbyists into their game now, which is the thing that probably killed off fantasy, and which is why they needed to renew that. And I think they might be seeing a similar thing with 40k, that it's not attracting as many people. There's stuff like the 50 quid starter sets attract people. That's one draw because it's a cheaper way into the hobby. But rules are also a barrier sometimes. When you've got too much to read, you're automatically put off. Unless you've had years of experience of reading rules and playing games and getting into that sort of the habit of being a wargamer, it's difficult to get into it. So I think simplifying stuff is a good way of getting more people into the hobby, and that's never a bad thing. The more people is always going to be better.
You're absolutely right, Sam, isn't it? That reducing the barriers to new gamers. New gamers is the lifeblood of the hobby for all of us. If we still want to be playing a game that's supported with new models coming out, then they've got to be attracting a new audience constantly. So, that change is something that everybody needs to accept because it's inevitable. And if barriers can move by price, I think Games Workshop have shown a real willingness to do that. We've seen some absolute bargains in those starter sets. Great deals when you actually look at the models you get in. They've got to, as you said, just find a way with the rule set as well, so that doesn't become a barrier to entry. You can pick up a small booklet and the rules for your own units, and off you go. You don't have to learn the rest of the stuff. If you haven't got a flyer, you don't need to learn the flyer rules.
Exactly. It's much better. And they're doing the same with the community side of things. Everything is becoming... The barriers are going down for Games Workshop for getting into their little world. You can now speak to people about... You can speak to people at head office. You can engage with their community that they've got. You've got all the barriers that were up before. They're now removing them to get more and more people into it.
Couple of comments here. Kablam's saying since playing Frostgrave, he hates complex rule sets. I'm been looking into that Frostgrave. I really need to get to know it because it looks a really interesting game. So I will have to do some digging around on that. GW knocked it out of the park for rules for Gangs of Comorar. Not played that yet actually, so maybe that's something we need to have a look at, Sam. It'd be good to pick that up.
Now I've pretty much decided I'm doing Chaos. I think Dark Eldar are now free for you to pick up. And I think with the new rules round the corner, I'm definitely going to be doing some sort... We could do a new edition, new army. Yeah, I reckon we could do a tale of 4 gamers and feature it and get a bunch of people involved.
Let's do it. The Johnson 8 is saying 1,000 to 1,500 points takes me 2 to 3 hours. Yeah, I think that's it. That's what Pink was saying, really, isn't it? It can chew up an afternoon, can't it? Particularly, it depends how familiar you are with your army. But if you are having to look up rules, it just starts to grind to a halt. 2 hours is okay. When it starts getting into 3, when it pushes beyond 3, everybody starts to feel a bit tired, unless you were in for the big game. What else is there? Right, maybe we should cover the next thing, because this is, for me, possibly a biggie, and it was certainly for Jack. This was the one that he raised his eyebrows at. So charging units should fight first. It's just more thematic. So we're hoping to work this out as well. It will reward tactically outmaneuvering your opponent. You can dictate the combats rather than being entirely initiative based. You control who swings first.
Can I go first?
Yeah, go for it.
I know I'm going to reference Age of Sigmar again, so I'm sorry.
Let's do it. No, that's okay.
I like the idea that when you charge in that game, you get to choose which unit to activate first, and then the other person gets to activate a unit, because there's an element of, even though it's your turn, your opponent still does stuff. They still have a choice, and they are still interacting with your turn, which is brilliant. And I don't like the idea that you go back to that it's not even tactical. A lot of the time you're just going, I'm going to measure this far away because I know that if I get the charge, it's going to swing the game so much that you end up just playing a game of inches and just measuring everything out. Whereas Age of Sigmar, you just pile it forwards. If you get charged in Age of Sigmar, doesn't matter. You will not pick the first activation, but you will get the second. Or you can still react to the enemy charging, so you're not as put off when it comes to getting into combat. Whereas I think for me, if somebody charges in 40k and gets to go first, I'm going to be really careful about putting my units further up the field, and I will tend to do more of a shooting list to stop that chance of being wiped out before I can do anything. And that was one of the old editions. I didn't like the rule of going first. I liked initiative, and I like Age of Sigmar's activation. So that's the one thing for me that I'm not too keen on, but I'll have to try it and see what it's like.
We're getting a couple of comments actually that may be worth for Pink to comment on as well. So we're saying, this rule is for Khorne players, great for close combat units, orcs massively benefit too, bonus for making the move first, and also Tyranids from the Johnsonator there. So what do you think, Pink?
I like this one. I think it'll make it way more interesting. And considering I had an orc army as well, that initiative 2 just killed you. It sort of came back a bit more from when Furious Charge, I think it was back in 5th or 6th, used to give you +1 initiative as well, and then they took that away. And now suddenly, so you get all these guys, they sort of like charge in, they're all pumped, and then they stand there getting their faces punched in. And then you get to punch back with whoever you got left. So
if you could activate a unit first, would that not help orcs as well?
Oh, yeah, massively. But this one is also, I think it's slightly different, and they're saying that every single unit, by the sounds of it, that charges goes first.
Exactly. So you can dominate.
That's the interesting point, isn't it? It's the interesting point. Are we talking about unit activation like Age of Sigmar? They don't say it outright, do they? That's certainly not what they're saying. They're saying it's not dictated by initiative entirely, but it says a tactical reward for outmaneuvering your opponent. You can control who swings first. So it might be a hybrid of the two rule sets. Initiative is relevant during the second round of combat, but if you've charged, you always strike first. Which, if that's the case, fantastic. Because, you do want some... I think unit by unit activation doesn't quite fit with some of the 40k stuff. The idea of a dreadnought lumbering around, swinging its arm around, or huge weapons that are unwieldy, but somehow striking first because of the circumstance of activation. Because what you're going to do is you're going to go through and just activate all your most heavy hitting units first, aren't you? And that now feels you've disassociated the dislocated that thematic feel of heavy weapons hitting slow and then a light bladesman hitting quickly, if you like. So I'm hoping for a hybrid. I'm hoping the initiative remains, but at the same time, if you've charged, strike first. And that feels like there is that to me gives the reward for outmaneuvering your opponent. But once you're in combat, normal rules apply.
The only thing I'd say on this one, I think, though, is it's really going to favour Death Stars, which are already what some people think is perhaps a little bit of a problem in 40k. So, at the moment, it's quite good to just build a big old filthy invisible melee Death Star and then just chuck it around the board. Well, if you've only got one big unit and you get to charge, that's the only one you care about going first anyways. And like you said, if it's got like Thunder Hammers, Power Fists and stuff, suddenly you're swinging first and the other guys probably won't even get a chance to attack back. So it'd be interesting to see. Maybe they modify weapons, maybe something like a Thunder Hammer or Power Fist, unwieldy states, and it just says this unit cannot hit first even if it charged, something like that.
Death Stars don't always win games though, do they? When you've got Death Stars that will kill anything, but then they don't win the game because if it's an objective-based one, they can't necessarily get around the table and score.
They've still been in mind, we could be talking thematic games where some of those conventional ways of winning will change, won't it? I mean, I think they already work quite hard to create objective-based games that, you know, to some extent could, as long as you could survive the Death Star to the end of the game, there was every reason you could outscore an army like that. Good point from Kablams here, saying not sure how he feels about this one. Depends on if they amend points cost, because a lot of units are costed for their initiative. Well, you know, as I said earlier, it could be a hybrid system, so in which case the points still apply. But there really isn't anything stopping Games Workshop simply doing what they did with Age of Sigmar and producing, you know, a guide to a complete repoint scoring of the system, especially if they accompanied that with some kind of army builder app to assist building your new lists again, you know.
That General's Handbook 2 might not be for Age of Sigmar. It could be a 40k General's Handbook.
That would be incredible.
I think they're going to win everything, to be honest. If they're going to have to redo everything with a movement statistic, and we already know that certain armies like, say, Orcs, Tyranids, are pretty underpowered at the moment, it would just feel like it makes sense, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, the last one, and this one's a biggie for me, because I have to say I'm not a super fan of this, but I could be convinced. Morale.
Love it.
It's no longer... Pardon?
Go on.
That's my dog barking. Even my dog's not happy about this one. Morale. It's no longer all or nothing, and it affects everyone. We're thinking of replacing break tests with a simple mechanic. Roll a d6, add that to the number of models your unit has lost this turn, subtract your leadership, and take that many additional casualties. You know, ouch. And, you know, I only say ouch from a Wraithguard unit, or, you know, things that are tough. Oh, no, a unit of Carnifexes. Come on. You know, so you kill, say I've got 3 of them, you kill one of them, I fail my test, and the other 2 are gone.
Yeah, but what if your leadership's like 8? Then you've got to lose 2 of them before you can even fail it.
Yeah.
Okay, but Carnifexes, you know, okay, but that does create, obviously, what would one hope is a fairly dramatic, you know, remix of the leadership value then, which of course is more than possible. I'm kind of thinking old stats with new rules, and that's what I'm hung up on. So you're absolutely right there, Pink.
What's the alternative?
What's the alternative?
You're saying Carnifex, like losing your unit of Carnifexes. Are they immune to psychology at the moment? Like if you beat a Carnifex unit...
If they are within Synapse range, they're fearless. So, you know, will the fearless mechanic still apply? Can that still apply? Is there an equivalent fearless unit? Is there equivalent of a fearless unit in Age of Sigmar using that mechanic?
Yeah, well, not fearless, but they ignore bravery.
That's the same question, actually. So they ignore what?
They ignore... You've got units and command abilities that can ignore... Like, there's the main command ability where you can make one unit ignore bravery tests and, battle shock tests. And I think it works, like, much more thematically, because rather than losing combat by 1 wound to the opponent, like you cause 1 less wound than the opponent does, and then rolling badly and losing an entire unit because of that,
running away
running away, going, oh no, we lost 1 more guy, we've still got 20 more people than you, but you won this combat by 1 wound, so we're now going to leg it. That doesn't make sense to me. Whereas Age of Sigmar, again, plug in Age of Sigmar, both sides in that game can lose models. If you both take casualties in a fight, you're going to have people running off from both sides. That makes sense. And I like the idea of it, to be honest. That's the change that I see making the biggest difference, only if they get rid of all of the fearless stuff in 40k and that's the big one. Like, it will affect stuff otherwise. I think Space Marines ignoring everything, and synapse, even Tyranids being within synapse range and just going, sorry, I ignore all of that rule. It means that the ones that don't ignore that rule get severely punished. So I think you've got to equalize it and say there's very specific occasions where you ignore that rule, but otherwise you're going to be both testing for it.
There's not many armies at the moment that really care about leadership at all.
No.
Like, even stuff like Imperial Guard, you just throw commissars and stuff like that in there, and suddenly you're priests and they're fearless. The only ones I can really think of, in honesty, are orcs again. It always comes back to that. But they keep rolling on the table and killing themselves or running away. And I mean, how many times now, like the new Death Guard rules say that you gain fear? Who cares? Who honestly cares? It doesn't affect anyone.
Yeah.
It's the most infuriating rule for me, fear. When I've got a flyer, an Eldar flyer that can go around terrifying everybody but anybody.
Yeah,
basically. Only other Eldar.
Okay, some chat here as well. So, too many of my units have broken from combat to have your commander sitting in the unit and lose because I got unlucky. I think most Stormcast Eternals have this, and I think that's where they're talking about the Age of Sigmar equivalent rules. So these ideas, morale bubbles need to be nerfed. People can send half an army hiding in a bubble with a commander. Yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? That kind of, but I think there are similar elements to that in Age of Sigmar. If you're within so many inches, you get a plus to your leadership, don't you? I think certainly in Silver.
Kabbalam said there, if they remove Fearless, my leadership for Dark Eldar Grotesques are screwed. And they will be, but I think if they do they are doing these changes, they will update the rules. They're not going to be like, oh, those Grotesques, unlucky.
Yeah, they'll update the leadership. One more, I think we're going to see, if movement's coming back in, we're going to see a whole new rebalancing all of that. So we can only hope, can't we? Sam, I've got to say, for the record, you've convinced me on this.
Sigmar.
Age of Sigmar.
I'm already convinced on Age of Sigmar. It's okay. I'm cool with Age of Sigmar. But you've convinced me on this mechanic. I think you're right. So there you are. It's on record.
That's it. I think you're right. Good point.
That's it.
I'm happy.
There's nothing more to say.
Just play that back to yourself.
Yeah, it's recorded now. It's on the internet. Now when you start grumbling, I'll say, sorry. Remember that.
Just remember the thing is, I think you've already given me that argument in the past, and I've accepted you as being right. And,
it was when Age of Sigmar, when you were talking, Age of Sigmar is changing their rules for bravery, and I was like, well, listen here, Phil, this is how it could work, but this is how it's going to work from now on. And then playing the game, it's brilliant. It works amazing. You play Total War on the PC. I don't know if you haven't played Total War, you have huge armies crashing against each other. Both of them are seeing their mates get killed. Both of them are losing losing people, and they're going to keep running away. You don't get one side going, well, hey, we're victorious, and just charge across the entire army. You have stragglers from both sides, and I love it. It's much better. Why are you shaking
Is there any way we
can
delete a live? Is there any way we can delete a live stream? I'm not sure I want on record me saying you're right. I don't know. I don't know if it's a good idea.
I am gonna do some sort of copy and then just superimpose that on everything in future. Every argument, I'll say, "What do you think, Phil, about this?" I think you are right, Sam.
I think you're right, but for a completely different reason. Pace. Mm-hmm. The game is quicker. That's what it is. There's, even the mechanic of having to retreat a unit and then roll for it at the start of the turn to see if it recovers, and then it turns around, and then it stands still for a turn and doesn't do anything. You've got like this whole proportion of your army in limbo.
Yeah.
So the idea of that, you know what? If you're not going to stay around and have a fight, get off the table. That's what I like. Just remove it. Remove the model.
Just get on with the game.
And let everybody else get on with having a scrap. So, pace for me, I think on reflection, looking back on the Sigmar games I've played, the pace is quicker, and that's a significant factor in it.
We're talking about 40k here, though, Phil, not Age of Sigmar.
I couldn't tell from your chat, Sam.
I should just wear Age of Sigmar stuff all the time. Merchandise, everything. Go on, Pink, sorry.
No, that's good. I tell you what this also does. This stops you having a big unit of like 20, 30 guys at the back of the board. They get shot with a Vindicator shell on turn one, and the entire unit legs it off the board.
Yeah.
That's no longer going to happen. That's no longer a problem. Because especially, I mean, you must have seen that. I guess Tyranids didn't care about morale, but when you've got a horde army and you can't fit anymore on the board, you can't keep them away from the board edge.
Yeah, you're looking at the enemy's tanks and going, I've got to put these somewhere, but I know what's going to happen first turn.
Yeah. Some 40k fearless close combats can really drag on. Absolute solid point. So actually, Sam was kind of right. Kablams has nailed it. I'm sorry, Sam.
I'm used to it. I'm usually wrong.
Okay. What else? Exciting stuff. So it says stay tuned on their Facebook page. There was a couple of other things, wasn't there, that sneaked out? One, there was the video we mentioned earlier where they throw the drop pod at the table. It's great fun. I enjoyed that. But there was also some Nurgle hints, wasn't there? And I think quite clearly at the end, and I've not actually, because I've been at work today, I've not had a chance to kind of trawl through the forums and see what people are saying. But does that not look like a Mortarion Demon Prince blade at the end of that video? Is that pretty much the accepted?
A reaping scythe.
Oh yeah. They say this scythe could kill a Primarch. So yeah.
Yeah, so we're thinking Mortarion's on his way then, yeah?
Well, now that I have committed myself to Chaos, I feel like Mortarion will be my next purchase. My first purchase for the Chaos army.
Yep.
You're going to have a Magnus, Mortarion, Fulgrim, Angron.
Yes.
For model army.
And I will take over Guilliman. Guilliman's nothing compared to Chaos. That's just the other thing I realised. Chaos is awesome. The Imperium's just Marines. Like, oh, more Marines. And even though I'm playing Chaos Marines, they're all different. I've been a loyalist my entire hobby. My entire hobby life, I've been a loyalist. And I've just realised that Chaos has some pretty funky stuff. And now I'm getting Mortarion.
You're just corrupted.
I'm corrupted. And the other thing, Cypher. I can put Cypher in my army now.
Which is a great model.
It's an amazing model, so I'm so excited.
Okay. Well, I think that maybe one last point. And we didn't prep for this, so sorry for putting you on the spot. So I'll start with Pink, because Sam will complain. One other thing you're hoping for from the next edition of 40k, Mr. Pink?
Oh, I guess I would prefer some sort of reliability on charge rolls, like if it became 6 plus d6, because it's so heartbreaking. Like shooting, you know your range, you know exactly how far you can fire, you know roughly how many hits you're going to get and stuff like that, and you can kind of math it out a little bit. Charging, all it takes is for your big, super, ultra mega squad to roll 2 1s, and it's going to stand there and get shot in the next turn. So that's the change I'd like to see.
Yeah. Okay. Sam?
I just want Age of Sigmar in 40k. And I think I'm going to get it. And I think I'm going to do all the Chaos. And I'm going to play all the Chaos because all of my units will be usable in the game. And you're going to now see a fun side of me playing 40k.
I've not seen you this excited about 40k for a long time, so I don't know whether Spud's still out there on the chat, Mr. Viking, but you were saying you had been away from 40k for a while, I'm wondering if this is going to be the thing that will bring the Wargamer Viking back to 40k, maybe. We'll see. Anybody else out there, do they want to drop on the chat and tell us what they're hoping for from 40k while I maybe add mine?
Well, Kiblams, Nordheim Gaming, Chaos is Kit Bash Heaven. That's just another one saying, Chaos is amazing. What else have we got? Kiblams, the charge range Pink mentioned is great. I think Carl Tuttle has said something similar. And the Viking is back, baby. Awesome. I can learn 40k with Spud.
For me, I'd like to. It's not so much a wish, but I'm intrigued to see what they will do with vehicles. I'd like so. I don't really particularly wish for anything, but what I would like to see next in the rumor mill is a hint towards how they're going to handle vehicles. Whether that's still going to have the whole armor and hull points, or whether that's going to go and like the giant creatures inside Age of Sigmar, we just have essentially, they said earlier unit types have gone. So no more infantry, no more monstrous creature, no more vehicle. Are we going to see it simplified to that extent that essentially whether it's a tank or a Carnifex, it's just a multi-wound
Behemoth
unit? Yeah. So not so much a wish, but certainly a wish to see what would come next and a hint towards that, please.
If you had to bet, which side do you think it will come down on?
If they lose vehicles the way it stands now, I will mourn the loss of movement sort of specific rules to a degree. Pivot, turn, if I can literally point in any direction and just go in any direction, okay, it will make the game faster. But to a degree, I think then that counters what they're saying around we want to reward people for tactical play. Because if a vehicle, if a jet bike can turn just as well, or rather, if a Bane blade can turn just as well as a jet bike, then I'm sorry, mate. Then that would upset me. But we'll see, won't we? We've got a few more on the chat. More variation in unit sizes, less formations. Interesting one.
Yeah.
I just want my desk coven to endure the change. Desk coven. Dark Eldar coven. Thank you. He corrected himself just below.
The Mike Norton's one was, I'm looking forward to Age of Sigmar in 40k. It might make the rules easier to grasp, so my wife may actually be more interested. And the first thing when Rachel came home today, I said, guess what? 40k is maybe getting Age of Sigmarized. And she was like, yeah, brilliant. I can't wait for this. I can finally get... She says, I'm glad I haven't learned 40k yet.
I can't wait for her to pick Chaos Space Marines as her army.
It's not going to happen. They won't be on the choice. I'll say, these are all your choices. What about these? No, they don't exist anymore. Sorry.
Okay, well, I think we've kind of covered everything, really. So
one last thing. When do you think it's going to hit? Summertime?
My birthday.
June. Mid-June. June
May.
the 17th.
I want it to be May.
Sam, when were normally the black dates where you couldn't take holiday as an employee? It's about the same time each year, isn't it?
Can't talk about that.
That's like asking him about Fight Club.
Yeah.
You can't talk about that.
Can't talk about Fight Club. Fair enough.
I'm hoping for May, but it's probably going to be June.
June the 17th. I've called it.
Okay.
Just like multiple movements.
We've got one more announcement, which isn't GW related. Well, it is GW related, kind of. It's about Wargamer Online, isn't it, Phil?
Yes, it is. Yeah. After much work, we are going to be going live with a website this weekend. So that's pretty exciting for us. We've still got a lot of work to do and not a lot of sleep, but we're pretty confident we're going to get there. So this weekend, keep an eye on the Facebook page, the community page, and we may do a little video announcement as well and a bit of a talk through the site. But yes, the website in its full version, because there's been sort of sneak preview versions available.
It's up at the minute, but it's not finished.
It's up at the minute, but there are sections that are yet to be released and additional information to be added, and things like the premium section to be added and those kind of things, and the community. So all of those things we'll talk about shortly. But it's very exciting because it's been a huge amount of work in the background, and we've received such positive feedback about the videos and the work we've done on the videos, and in particular, Sam's the star there because he's worked really hard on that, but simultaneously there's been a parallel of activity to get this website in place. And as ever, these things always take a lot more work than you expect, but we're so close now, and it's pretty exciting.
We're going to have some sort of promotion as well, aren't we, for the start? I think we'll we'll work
absolutely.
out some really nice discount stuff for the first however many we pick.
Yeah, I think some discounts and definitely some giveaways as well, and we might have to up the ante on the giveaways a bit. We've been giving single infantry models away for every 100 subscribers on YouTube, but we'll have a think of a few giveaways on the website as that go live as well. And we've got some great goodies in our bags we've been saving up over the last year and a half. I think I've got a Phantom Titan somewhere down here.
You have? and you haven't built it, so just give it away. Give it away.
Just give it away.
Yeah, it'll get killed by a grot anyway now in the new edition, so you're not going to need it.
There's a load of birthdays in June, so let's make sure that Games Workshop 17th of June is Mike Norton's birthday. So why not your birthday? Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, so
I
bit
think
of a
we're
random
done.
one. We're not going to do these. We'll do these as often as we need to. Whenever we think we've got
Yeah.
something to talk about, whenever somebody's going to come on and chat, we'll jump on board. But it's been really, it's been nice to have a good chat about it. Actually, I feel a lot better about it now. A lot better. Better just because I've convinced you for one part of it, Phil. That's made my evening.
You were right, Sam. You were right.
Yeah, and we're going to head off and continue with the website stuff, aren't we? It's going to be beautiful.
Yes. Work to do.
So thank you, Mr. Pink, for joining me and Phil.
No worries, guys.
Thank you, Phil, for joining me on the internet.
No problem.
And thank you to everybody who has joined in on the chat. It's another spur of the moment one. We've had quite a few of you chatting away again, even though we were only on Tuesday with another spur of the moment chat. So it's been good to see a bunch of you join in. Our next live chat will be next Wednesday, and we will see you all again soon. And keep an eye on the Facebook page for the weekend. If you aren't already subscribed, please subscribe and like the video if you wouldn't mind. But we will see you all weekend, isn't it now? Yeah.
Bye.
Credit time. Bye.
Bye.